Hello. Today I want to tell you the story of my 72-year-old grandmother, Mary. This is not just a family story, it's one that might change your life too. Because Mary did something most doctors said was impossible. She regained strength at an age when people are told to only expect decline. And the secret wasn't found in a pill bottle or in the gym. It was hidden in something so ordinary, so overlooked, that it shocked everyone who heard her story. Mary had always been strong. She was a teacher for more than 30 years, raising 3 children, helping with her grandchildren, always moving, always busy. But when her 70s came, her body betrayed her. Her knees swelled. Her legs weakened. She began to avoid stairs because each step shook like her bones might give way. She stopped gardening, the joy of her afternoons. Even carrying groceries from the car became too heavy. She visited doctor after doctor, hoping for answers. But each time the words were the same. At your age, this is normal. You won't get stronger. You should slow down, accept the walker, and take it easy. Imagine hearing that over and over again. For Mary, those words felt like a sentence. She wasn't ready to give up. Yet every appointment, every prescription, every shrug from a professional told her she had no choice, and so her world grew smaller. She skipped Sunday church because the long walk down the aisle was too much. She watched her garden turn wild because she couldn't bend low enough to pull the weeds. Family gatherings were bittersweet. She smiled for her grandchildren, but inside she feared they would only remember her as the grandmother who couldn't keep up. One night she whispered, "Maybe this is who I am now." Weak. But that night was not the end of her story, because soon, something unexpected happened. Something so small it almost seemed meaningless. A simple change at the dinner table. At first, Mary didn't think it mattered. Yet within weeks, her neighbors noticed. She walked straighter. She carried her own bags again. She laughed, saying she could almost outrun her grandkids. Doctors couldn't explain it. When her test results came back, the nurses thought the machines were broken. In this video, I'm going to reveal exactly what Mary discovered, why it worked, and how it can transform your body after 60. But before we get to that revelation, you need to understand how far she fell, because only then will you see how incredible her comeback really was. Mary's days began to feel like a slow defeat. She would wake up in the morning, sit on the edge of her bed, and stare at her slippers on the floor. Something as small as leaning down to put them on felt like a challenge. Once, she almost fell trying to do it. That frightened her more than anything, because she had heard stories of seniors who break a hip, and after that, life is never the same. She whispered to herself, "Please, not me. Not yet." Walking to the kitchen was another battle. Her hands clung to the walls for balance, her knees burning with every step. The kettle whistled as she tried to make her morning tea, but even lifting it felt heavier than before. She looked at her reflection in the window and barely recognized the woman staring back. The strong teacher, the mother who once carried heavy bags, the woman who danced at weddings. She seemed gone. Her children worried. "Mom, maybe you should move to a smaller place. Fewer stairs," they suggested gently. But to Mary, that felt like surrender, giving up her home, her independence, her dignity. Yet the reality was harsh. Each week she could do less, and each doctor appointment ended the same way. "It's age. It's natural. Accept it." Those words cut deeper than pain itself. But fate has a strange way of intervening. One evening, while visiting a neighbor, Mary was served a simple dish. Something she hadn't eaten regularly in years. She didn't think much of it at the time. Just polite conversation and a shared meal. Yet the following days, she noticed a subtle shift. Her legs felt less heavy. She stood a little taller without realizing it. At first, she dismissed it. "Maybe I just slept better," she thought. But then it happened again. And again. Her family began to notice too. Her daughter said, "Mom, You walked across the yard without stopping. I haven't seen you do that in months. A friend at church whispered, You look different, lighter somehow. Mary smiled but kept quiet. She didn't want to believe too soon. After all, what could one small food possibly change when doctors and medicine had failed her? Yet the changes grew undeniable. By the 3rd week, she carried her grocery bags herself, refusing help from the cashier. By the 5th week, she returned to her beloved garden, kneeling down slowly but steadily, pulling weeds with her bare hands. It was as if the clock had turned back, not 10 years, but enough to give her hope. Her doctor, puzzled by her progress, ordered new blood tests. When the results came in, the staff thought the machines were wrong. Muscle protein synthesis rates had jumped, numbers they usually only saw in patients decades younger. The doctor shook his head and muttered, This isn't possible, not at your age. But it was happening, and Mary knew she had stumbled onto something. Still, she hadn't told anyone what had changed. Not yet. It felt like her secret, fragile and powerful at the same time. She was waiting, testing, making sure it was real. And it was real. Because by the end of 3 months, Mary Ike's story would not just defy her doctors, it would challenge everything we think we know about aging. By the start of her 3rd month, Mary's life no longer looked like the life of a frail 72-year-old woman. Each morning, she rose without groaning at her knees. She walked to the kitchen without clinging to the walls. Even the small act of bending to tie her shoes, a movement that once left her trembling, was smooth again. These were not miracles. These were real, physical changes her body should not have been able to make at her age. Her children were the first to notice. Mom, what happened? You're moving like you're 10 years younger, her son said one morning after watching her climb the porch steps without hesitation. Mary only smiled. She wasn't ready to tell them. Not yet. Because even she needed more proof that this was real. That proof came in the form of lab results. Her doctor, a seasoned man who had seen thousands of patients, held the papers in his hands, staring in disbelief. Mary, this doesn't make sense, he muttered. Your muscle protein synthesis rates. They're comparable to someone in their 40s. He shook his head, half laughing, half baffled. We almost never see numbers like this past age 60. Honestly, I thought the lab machines made a mistake. But the machines had not made a mistake. The numbers matched the reality of Mary's daily life. She could carry her shopping bags. She had returned to her garden, kneeling down for hours, her hands in the soil, humming the same songs she used to sing years ago. Neighbors watched from across the fence in quiet amazement. One said, Mary, you look like yourself again. Another whispered, I thought aging only went in one direction. Still, Mary kept the secret close. She wanted to be certain. She wanted her body to prove, week after week, that this was no fluke. And it did. Her strength stabilized. Her energy grew. Even her posture seemed to stretch taller, as if she had shed years from her frame. But the more she improved, the more the questions piled up. Her doctor asked, What exactly are you doing? Is it a supplement? A therapy? A hidden treatment I don't know about? Mary only shook her head with a quiet smile. Her family begged her to tell them. Friends pressed for answers, yet she held back. Because Mary understood something powerful. The truth she carried would not just change her life. It could change the lives of thousands, maybe millions, of people who had been told the same cruel words she once heard. It is normal. Accept weakness. You'll never get strong again. What was her secret? That answer was coming, but not yet. Because first, you need to know why doctors missed it for so long, and why something so simple had been hiding in plain sight. The time had finally come for Mary's secret to be revealed. After months of quiet change, After results that stunned her doctors and left her family in disbelief, she decided it was no longer something she could keep to herself. She sat at her kitchen table one evening, her children gathered around, and she smiled as she placed the answer right in front of them. It wasn't a pill bottle. It wasn't a therapy device. It was food. Ordinary food most people walk past without a second thought. What Mary had reintroduced into her diet were collagen-rich foods. Foods like bone broth simmered for hours, chicken skin that most people throw away, and simple cuts of meat that still carried tendons and connective tissue. These were things her own grandmother had once cooked regularly. But over the years, Mary had followed modern advice. Low fat, low salt, processed substitutes. In trying to be healthy, she had unknowingly stripped away the very building blocks her aging body needed. Collagen is the body's scaffolding. It holds joints together, keeps skin firm, and, most importantly for seniors, feeds the muscles the raw materials they need to stay strong. By her 70s, Mary's natural collagen production had nearly vanished. Doctors rarely talked about this, focusing instead on protein powders and exercise plans. But what they overlooked was that without collagen, the body can't fully use the protein it gets. It's like trying to build a house with bricks but no mortar. Within weeks of adding these forgotten foods back into her meals, Mary's body began to respond. Her knees, once swollen and stiff, carried her again. Her muscles, thought to be too old to rebuild, began to regenerate at levels her doctors could hardly believe. Science backed her up. New studies show that collagen-rich diets in seniors can dramatically improve muscle protein synthesis, reduce inflammation, and even support bone density. But Mary didn't need studies. She felt it in her bones, her muscles, her every step. Her family sat speechless as she explained. They had expected some complicated therapy, an expensive program. Instead, it was something so simple they could start that very night. Her son shook his head, whispering, "All this time." And the answer was right here on our plates. Word of Mary's story spread slowly but powerfully. Friends at church began simmering bone broth again. Neighbors asked her for recipes. Even her skeptical doctor admitted, "Mary, you've taught me something I overlooked for years. Strength doesn't have to vanish with age, not if we give the body the right tools." And that is why I'm sharing this story with you. Because if you are over 60, or if you love someone who is, you don't have to surrender to weakness. You don't have to accept the idea that strength is gone forever. The foods Mary rediscovered are available in every grocery store, waiting to be used as medicine in their own quiet way. So the question is, will you try them? Will you allow your story, like Mary's, to challenge what doctors once told you was impossible? If this story gave you hope, leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if you want to learn more about specific foods that protect strength and independence after 60, make sure to subscribe, because we'll be uncovering even more hidden truths like this one. Mary's journey wasn't just about regaining her muscles. It was about proving that even in the later chapters of life, the ending isn't written yet. Sometimes the most powerful changes are hidden in the simplest places, right on our own plates.